Have you ever felt it? That profound, almost imperceptible hum of dissonance deep within your soul. A quiet yet persistent feeling that the world you navigate, the reality you've been handed, is somehow incomplete. It's a frequency that whispers to you in the dead of night, a vibration that questions the very fabric of your daily existence, telling you that there is something more, something vast and true that lies just beyond the veil of what you've been taught to see. This feeling is not a flaw, it is not a sign of madness. It is the first sacred stirring of your awakening. It is the divine guidance of your higher self, knocking on the door of your consciousness, urging you to look closer. If these words find a home in your heart, if they echo a truth you've long felt but could not name, let your energy be known. A like is a signal of resonance. A subscription is an act of alignment with this journey. And in the comments below, a simple "I am awake" or the number 777 is a powerful declaration to the universe and to each other that you are ready. Let us know we are not alone on this sacred path, for in our shared awakening, we find our greatest strength. Imagine this, feel this with every fiber of your being. You find yourself suspended in a space of profound isolation, a chamber of the self where you are utterly and completely alone. This isn't a physical room with four walls, but a state of being, an internal landscape meticulously crafted to keep you contained. Look around this inner prison. There are no windows to the outside world, no portals to glimpse a different reality. The walls are not made of brick and mortar, but of deeply ingrained beliefs, plastered over with the fears and limitations handed down to you through generations. Can you feel the texture of those walls? They are smooth with the platitudes of conformity, yet rough with the grit of unfulfilled dreams. There are no clocks here, not because time has stopped, but because in this state, time itself is a loop, a repeating cycle of days and nights that blur into a meaningless eternity of survival. The past is a collection of regrets that echo in the silence, the future a hazy fog of anxieties, and the present moment is a void you are desperately trying to fill. There is no tangible way out, no door handle to grasp, no keyhole to peer through. The only exit is a shift in perception, a change in frequency that you have been conditioned to believe is impossible. You don't know if it's day or night, not in the earthly sense, but in the spiritual sense. Is your soul basking in the light of truth, or is it lost in the dark night of illusion? You have no frame of reference. You don't know how long you've been in this state of spiritual slumber. Has it been years, decades, a lifetime? The duration is irrelevant, for the spell of this place makes a single moment of doubt feel like an eternity, and a lifetime of conformity feel like a fleeting, dreamless sleep. The only thing you know for certain, the one truth that flickers like a dying candle in the center of this void, is that something is profoundly wrong. It's not a simple error or a minor miscalculation. It is a deep, foundational, soul-level wrongness. It's a feeling that gnaws at the edges of your awareness, a spiritual splinter that you can't quite locate but can never truly ignore. This feeling is the echo of your true self, a part of your divine essence that was torn away from you so long ago, perhaps at the very moment you took your first breath in this dense, physical reality. It was a separation from Source, a severing of the memory of your own infinite power and sovereignty, an event that happened in the spiritual ether years, lifetimes ago. And now, in this quiet moment of inner solitude, you are just beginning to notice the wound. You are just now becoming aware of the phantom limb, the missing piece of your spirit that aches with a longing for wholeness. It's as if you've been walking through life with a vital part of your being absent, and only now, in the crushing silence of this inner room, can you finally hear its call. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, has orchestrated this moment of profound discomfort, this sacred crisis, to force you to acknowledge the void within, not as a source of despair, but as the starting point of your journey back to yourself. This feeling of being deeply wrong is, in fact, the first sign that everything is about to become right. It is the cracking of the shell, the first tremor before the spiritual earthquake that will shatter the foundations of your prison. Suddenly, a fissure of light appears where a wall once stood. A door you never knew existed swings open, not with a creak of old hinges, but with the silent, effortless hum of a higher frequency. The light that spills in isn't warm or inviting. It's sterile, clinical, and tinged with an unsettling familiarity. Through this opening steps a figure, an entity cloaked in the guise of authority and respectability. He is dressed in a perfectly tailored suit, a uniform of the system he represents. There is not a single crease or flaw in his appearance, a perfect mirror of the flawless illusion he is about to present. He doesn't offer a name, for names imply individuality, and he is merely a functionary, an emissary of the collective program. He is the architect of your perceived reality, the gatekeeper of your comfortable cage. He doesn't need to introduce himself. A part of you, the part that has been conditioned to obey, already recognizes his authority. He looks at you, not with compassion or empathy, but with a gaze that is both piercing and vacant, like a security camera assessing a subject. His eyes seem to see right through you, not to your soul, but to the data points of your fears, your desires, your weaknesses, and then he smiles. It is not a smile of genuine warmth, but a carefully calibrated expression designed to disarm, to pacify, to signal that everything is under control. It's the smile of a banker approving a loan that will indebt you for a lifetime, the smile of a politician making a promise he has no intention of keeping. It's a smile that says, "Trust me, I know what's best for you." With a movement that is both graceful and unnervingly precise, he extends a hand, and in it, he holds a single sheet of paper. It appears innocuous, just another document in a world built on paperwork. But feel its weight, perceive its true energetic signature. This is not just paper, it is a contract, a binding agreement. The ink on it is a strange, shimmering substance, and you realize it's made not of pigment, but of crystallized promises of security, whispers of acceptance, and the subtle, intoxicating scent of a life without risk. He hands it to you, and without a conscious thought, your hand reaches out to accept it. You sign your name on the dotted line, the motion feeling automatic, rehearsed, a muscular memory from a lifetime of signing away small pieces of your freedom. You do it without knowing why you're signing, what the document truly entails, or what it is you are giving up in exchange for the hollow promises it contains. The act of signing is a ritual of consent, a performance of compliance that reaffirms your place within the very system that has imprisoned you. You don't question it because you have been taught that questioning is dangerous, that obedience is a virtue. The pen in your hand feels less like a tool and more like a shackle, locking you into a pre-written destiny. A wave of nausea, of profound cognitive dissonance, washes over you. Your spirit screams in silent protest, but the conditioned mind, the loyal servant of the system, completes the task. The signature, your unique energetic imprint, is now bound to the agreement. The transaction is complete. A flicker of curiosity, a spark of your dormant consciousness, finally ignites within you. You look up from the paper, your voice a hoarse whisper in the sterile silence, and you ask, what does all this mean? The question hangs in the air, a fragile rebellion, a tiny crack in the perfect facade of the room. The figure in the suit maintains his placid, unnerving smile. His response is not delivered with malice or anger, but with a chilling, brutal calmness, the detached tone of a programmer explaining the function of a line of code. His voice is smooth, hypnotic, every word a carefully polished stone, designed to build a new wall around your burgeoning awareness. He answers with a phrase that is meant to sound like a liberation, but feels like a final, damning judgment. "Welcome to the real world," he says, his voice echoing in the chamber of your mind. The words are a cruel paradox, a twisted inversion of truth. He continues, his tone unwavering. "You haven't just entered this place. You've been trapped here since the day you were born. This is the great reveal, the devastating punchline to the cosmic joke you've been living. The prison didn't manifest today, your awareness of it did. The bars were always there, invisible but unyielding. They were forged in the schools that taught you what to think but not how to think, in the media that sold you dreams that were never your own, in the societal expectations that clipped your wings before you ever learned to fly. And in that moment of crushing clarity, you finally understand. The prison isn't this room. This room is just a manifestation, a symptom of a much deeper, more pervasive confinement. The real prison is the construct of normalcy itself, the grand illusion you've been conditioned to accept as life. The prison didn't start the moment that door opened. It didn't begin with the signing of that contract. It started with your very first breath, the moment your infinite, untamed spirit was squeezed into a physical form and handed a script to follow. It was the first day you breathed the conditioned air of a world that fears sovereign beings, a world that thrives on the predictability of its subjects. You were born free, but you were immediately placed into a carefully constructed labyrinth, a maze of cultural norms, economic pressures, and social dogmas. The walls of this labyrinth are the very things you were taught to strive for, the very ideals you were told would bring you happiness. This realization is not meant to break you, it is meant to break you open. It is the necessary, painful, and ultimately liberating first step toward reclaiming the freedom that has always been your divine birthright. You were never truly a prisoner. You were a sleeping sovereign who is just beginning to remember the power you hold to walk right through the walls. Does this sound exaggerated? Does it feel like a dramatic overstatement, a conspiracy whispered in the shadows? Take a moment, breathe, look beyond the surface of your own life, past the justifications and the rationalizations. The truth is, it's not an exaggeration at all. It is the understated reality for the vast majority of souls on this planet. Everything you consider normal, every aspect of the life you've been told is the right way to live, is, in fact, a carefully placed bar in your gilded cage. Think back to the school you hated, the institution that was supposed to expand your mind but instead seemed designed to crush your spirit. Remember the rigid rows of desks, the bells that dictated your every move, the curriculum that rewarded memorization over genuine inquiry. Was that education, or was it indoctrination into a system of obedience? Was it designed to awaken your unique genius, or to mold you into a compliant cog for the societal machine? And what of the job you didn't choose, the career path you stumbled into out of necessity, obligation, or the fear of being left behind? That job that drains your life force, that asks for the best hours of your day, the best years of your life, in exchange for a paycheck that barely covers the cost of your own survival. Is that a calling, or is it a form of modern-day indentured servitude? You didn't consciously choose it. You were channeled into it by a system that presents a limited menu of acceptable options, all of which ultimately serve the system itself. Consider the crushing weight of the debts you carried, or perhaps still carry. The student loans that financed your indoctrination, the mortgage that chained you to a piece of land for 30 years, the credit card debt that funded the illusion of a lifestyle you were told you needed to be happy. Were these financial tools for your empowerment, or were they cleverly designed mechanisms of control, ensuring you would never have the freedom to simply walk away? They are the invisible leashes that keep you running on the hamster wheel, forever chasing a future of financial freedom that the system is designed to keep just out of reach. Reflect on the emotional rhythm of your week, a rhythm that has become so normalized it's considered a universal human experience. Those Sundays filled with a creeping, formless anxiety, a shadow that falls over the last few hours of your weekend freedom. It's the soul's quiet dread of returning to the cage, a grief for the life you're not living. And then the Mondays, arriving with the grim finality of a funeral procession. The funeral face you wear as you commute, the forced pleasantries with colleagues who are also wearing their masks, the collective sigh of a workforce mourning the loss of its own autonomy for another 5 days. Were these natural emotional cycles, or were they the predictable psychological responses of a captive spirit? All of it, the tedious education, the soul-crushing job, the suffocating debt, the weekly cycle of anxiety and resignation, of these were not accidents. They were not the result of your personal failings or bad luck. They were integral parts of the design. They are the carefully calibrated gears of a grand machine, a societal matrix engineered to keep you distracted, dependent, and disempowered. It is a system that runs on your life force, that is powered by your unfulfilled dreams and your untapped potential. You don't truly live your own life. You survive inside a meticulously constructed labyrinth, a maze so vast and intricate that most people never even realize they are in one. The paths are paved with distractions, endless entertainment, political dramas, consumer trends, and the perpetual chase for the next fleeting pleasure. The walls are lined with mirrors that reflect back a distorted image of who you are supposed to be: successful, productive, normal. You are given just enough freedom to choose between pre-approved paths, making you believe you are in control of your journey. But every path is a dead end. Every choice ultimately leads you back to the center of the maze, back to the starting point of your quiet desperation. The purpose of this labyrinth is not to challenge you or to help you grow. Its sole purpose is to consume your time and your energy, the two most precious resources you possess. It is designed to keep you so busy navigating its twists and turns, so focused on the daily struggle for survival, that you never have a moment of silence to look up, to question the nature of the maze itself. It is engineered so you never find the one thing that could set you free: the exit. The exit isn't a hidden door or a secret passage. It is the realization that the labyrinth itself is an illusion, a construct of belief that has no real power over a truly sovereign mind. And do you know the most terrifying, most insidious part of this entire grand deception? It's not the walls of the labyrinth or the invisible chains of debt. It's the fact that you have been programmed to call this prison freedom. You celebrate the very instruments of your own enslavement. You celebrate when they hand you a new credit card, a shiny piece of plastic that represents not buying power, but a deeper descent into servitude. You feel a sense of pride, of accomplishment, as you increase your capacity to go into debt for things that will never fill the void in your soul. You thank them, you express gratitude, when they approve the mortgage that will mortgage your very soul for the next 3 decades, tying your destiny to a plot of land and a monthly payment that will dictate the majority of your life choices. You smile, a genuine, happy smile, when you sign the employment contract that chains you to a desk for 40 hours a week for 40 years of your life. You see it as a milestone, a step up the ladder, a moment of success. You celebrate it as if you have been saved from the uncertainty of the unknown, rescued from the terrifying prospect of having to create your own path. But the brutal, undeniable truth is that no one saved you. They didn't rescue you from anything. They simply recruited you. They didn't offer you a lifeline. They offered you a more comfortable, more socially acceptable cell within the same prison. They gave your servitude a respectable name and a corner office with a view of other people's cages. They expertly disguised the reality of your situation, cloaking it in the language of stability and responsibility. They took the raw, grinding reality of poverty, the constant fear of not having enough, and they rebranded it as stability. They offered you a predictable paycheck, a steady routine, not as a foundation for your dreams, but as a sedative to keep you from ever dreaming too big. They took the state of dependency, of relying on an external entity for your survival, and they called it responsibility. They made you believe that being a good, responsible adult meant plugging into their system, following their rules, and never questioning the hand that feeds you. And most masterfully of all, they took the concept of slavery, the selling of your time, your energy, your very life force, in exchange for sustenance, and they repackaged it, marketed it, and sold it back to you as success. They created a ladder within the prison walls and convinced you that climbing it was the ultimate goal, all while obscuring the fact that no matter how high you climb, you are still inside. Do you truly, in the deepest recesses of your heart, believe that this is all just a coincidence? Do you really think that the global architecture of society, the intricate systems of finance, education, and employment just happen to evolve this way by chance? Do you honestly believe that millions, no, billions of people live on the razor's edge every single month, one paycheck away from disaster, simply because of a collective lack of effort or a shared personal failing? Does that narrative even make logical sense to you anymore? Open your eyes. Number is not a story, it is a symptom. It is the irrefutable evidence of a meticulously designed system. The truth is that this is not a coincidence, it is programming. It is a script, a grand narrative written long ago by those who understood that true power lies not in controlling people's bodies, but in controlling their minds. It is a story so pervasive, so deeply embedded in the fabric of our culture, that we have forgotten it is a story at all. We have mistaken the script for reality. And this grand production is populated with characters, billions of them, with characters just like you, who are so deeply immersed in their roles that they don't even know they are acting. They believe their lines are their own thoughts, their staged dramas are their own lives, and the painted backdrop is the entire world. They programmed you from the very beginning. They taught you to obey before they ever taught you to think. From the moment you entered the school system, you were trained to follow instructions, to stay within the lines, to give the correct answer rather than to explore the question. Critical thinking was a subject, not a fundamental practice. Obedience was rewarded with good grades and praise, while true rebellion of thought was often labeled as a behavioral problem. They taught you to consume before they ever encouraged you to question. You were bombarded with thousands of advertisements every single day, a relentless assault on your subconscious, programming you to believe that your identity, your happiness, and your self-worth were tied to the things you owned. You were trained to be a consumer, a passive recipient of products and ideologies, rather than a conscious creator of your own reality. The very act of wanting less, of being content with what you have, was framed as a lack of ambition. They taught you to fear before they ever empowered you to decide. They filled your world with narratives of scarcity, competition, and danger. The fear of not having enough, the fear of being left behind, the fear of being different, the fear of failure. These became the invisible walls of your mental prison, keeping you on the well-trodden path of conformity. And the most sinister part of this psychological conditioning is the masterful way they convinced you that if you don't succeed within their rigged game, it's because something is inherently wrong with you. Not with the game, not with the rules, but with you. They created an impossible standard of success, and then sold you the belief that your inability to achieve it was a personal flaw, a lack of talent, a deficit in your character. This is the ultimate control mechanism, to turn the prisoner into their own jailer. They brainwashed you so deeply, so completely, that now you self-punish when you can't handle the impossible demands of the system. You blame yourself for the burnout, for the anxiety, for the depression. You internalize the failures of the system as your own. You work harder, you push yourself further, you sacrifice more of your well-being, all in a desperate attempt to fix a problem that was never yours to begin with. But you must hear this. You must absorb this truth into every cell of your being. It is not your fault. You are not broken. You are a perfectly functioning human being, responding to a deeply dysfunctional system. It is a system designed for that exact outcome, for you to blame yourself, to carry the weight of its flaws, while they, the unseen architects, the silent beneficiaries, reap the rewards of your struggle. And if you are sitting there, in the quiet solitude of your own created reality, waiting for someone to come and rescue you, here is some news that will both terrify and liberate you. No one is coming. There is no knight in shining armor, no benevolent leader, no external savior who will break down the doors of your prison. The belief in a rescuer is the final, most subtle lock on the cage, the one that keeps you passive, waiting, hoping for a day that will never arrive. Because this system, this matrix of control, doesn't fall through external force, it dissolves through internal awakening. It is abandoned, not with force, but with awareness. It is not dismantled with rage, but with truth. The revolution will not be televised, for it cannot be captured by a camera. It is a silent, internal shift, a personal declaration of independence that happens one soul at a time. And that truth, that raw, unvarnished, and often uncomfortable truth, is what you are about to face, what you are facing right now in this very moment. You must face it, even if it hurts, even if it makes your legs shake with the fear of the unknown. You must face it, even if every conditioned part of you wants to close this video, to dismiss these words as madness, and to retreat back into the comfortable numbness of the illusion. You must listen, because what you are about to hear, what you are hearing now, wasn't created to entertain you. It wasn't designed to distract you or to offer you another fleeting dose of digital comfort. It was crafted with a single, sacred intention: to wake you up. And you must understand this with absolute certainty once you truly wake up. Once you see the architecture of the matrix for what it is, there is no turning back. You can never fully go back to sleep. The veil has been lifted, and you cannot unsee what you have seen, because once you start to recognize the pattern, once you develop the eyes to see the underlying code of control, you will see it everywhere. It will be in the subtle language of the news reports, in the unspoken assumptions of your daily conversations, in the very structure of the society you inhabit. You will see it in the rising prices that constantly outpace your salary, a deliberate mechanism to keep you in a state of perpetual struggle, ensuring that your energy is always focused on survival rather than expansion. You will see it in the relentless barrage of advertisements that bombard you from every screen, a constant psychic invasion designed to create artificial needs and to make you feel perpetually inadequate, always needing one more thing to be whole. They aren't selling you products. They are selling you a temporary cure for the emptiness that the system itself creates. You will see it in the way every conversation, no matter how personal or profound, inevitably revolves around money, work, and status, even without really talking about it. Have you noticed this? How people size each other up based on their careers, their possessions, their perceived level of success. Money has become the silent, ever-present metric by which we measure a person's worth, a deeply ingrained value system that we rarely stop to question. No one teaches you how money is truly created. In all your years of formal education, was there ever a class on the nature of currency, on the mechanisms of central banking, on how value is literally conjured out of thin air? Number. You were taught how to earn money, how to spend money, and how to go into debt for money, but never the fundamental truths of the system itself. No one explains who really prints it, who holds the ultimate power to inflate or deflate its value, effectively taxing you through the invisible act of currency devaluation. No one clearly explains who controls it, the small, unelected groups who make decisions that impact the financial destiny of billions. And no one ever sits you down to explain why, year after year, you can buy less and less with the same amount of your hard-earned money. They give you complex, confusing explanations about inflation and market forces, all designed to obscure a simple truth. The system is designed to transfer wealth from the many who earn it to the few who create it. They don't want you to understand. They just say, work hard, save, invest in a pension plan. They offer you a simple, three-step formula for a life of quiet compliance. Work hard for their system, save the devaluing currency they create, invest in their financial markets, becoming a stakeholder in your own prison. They present this as sound financial advice, as if it were enough to secure your future. But it's not. It never was. Because the game, the real game being played on the global stage, isn't about producing value. It's about owning the systems that extract value. They own, and you produce. They own the corporations, and you provide the labor. They own the banks, and you provide the deposits and pay the interest. They own the media, and you provide the attention. They own your time, the most finite and precious commodity you will ever possess. From the moment you clock in to the moment you clock out, your life force is not your own. They own your attention, directing it towards their narratives, their products, their endless stream of distractions, keeping you from turning that powerful focus inward. And ultimately, they own your energy, harnessing the collective power of billions of human beings to fuel a machine that serves the interests of a tiny few. And that, right there, is the part that hurts the most. It is the deepest, most profound betrayal. It's not just the lost money or the wasted time. It's the heartbreaking realization of not knowing how much of yourself, your dreams, your very essence you have given away without ever realizing it, without ever giving your conscious, informed consent. But here's an even more uncomfortable, more confronting truth, one that takes this realization to an even deeper level. They don't just control you with money. That's the crude, external mechanism. The real, enduring control is achieved through your emotions. They trained you from childhood to fear scarcity, to live with a background hum of anxiety about not having enough. This fear keeps you compliant, willing to accept jobs you hate and conditions you would otherwise never tolerate. They trained you to fear not making ends meet, a fear that forces you into a mindset of short-term survival rather than long-term creation. They trained you to fear losing your job, an existential threat in a system where your job is tied to your identity, your healthcare, and your ability to provide for your family. They trained you to fear being a nobody, to equate your self-worth with your title, your salary, and your status within the social hierarchy. And that fear, that carefully cultivated and constantly reinforced fear, is pure gold for them. It is the fuel that powers their entire system, because a mind in fear becomes obedient. A mind in fear does not question authority, it seeks it. A mind in fear does not innovate, it conforms. It silences itself. It censors its own rebellious thoughts. It accepts the unacceptable as inevitable. It settles for a life of quiet compromise. And when the pressure becomes too much, when the quiet desperation becomes a deafening roar, it doesn't break its chains, it goes into more debt, adding another layer of servitude in a desperate attempt to feel a fleeting sense of relief. Because the system knows this simple, powerful psychological truth. Fear pushes you to accept conditions you would never, ever accept calmly. In a state of peace and clarity, you would laugh at the absurdity of trading 5 days of your life for 2, of going into debt for 30 years to own a house you barely have time to live in, of sacrificing your health and your passions for a job that could replace you in a heartbeat. But in a state of fear, these choices don't seem absurd, they seem necessary. They seem like the only responsible options available, and that is where they make sure you never leave the labyrinth. That is the genius of their design, because the debt you accumulate is not only paid with money, it is paid with your health, with the stress that ages your body and clouds your mind. It is paid with your time, with the finite moments of your one precious life that you can never get back. It is paid with your relationships, with the connections that wither from neglect because you are too tired, too stressed, too busy to nurture them. It is paid with the years that won't come back, the years of your youth, your vitality, your creative peak, all sacrificed at the altar of a false security. Ultimately, it is paid with a life that was never truly yours, a life that was a pre-packaged, pre-approved template that you ended up living simply because it seemed like the only option. And all the while, you sacrifice your one and only existence to pay for a house, a car, a degree you never truly wanted. There is someone on the other side of the system, someone you will never meet, who is accumulating power, wealth, and freedom with every single step you take. But now, let's talk about something even deeper, something quieter, something even more invisible but infinitely more powerful, the language that builds your reality. Because you must understand that even the words you use to think about your life are not truly yours. They are part of the programming. Have you ever stopped to analyze the phrases we use, the collective beliefs embedded in our everyday language about money? Money is dirty. Money changes people for the worse. It's not spiritual to talk about wealth. Where did these ideas come from? Did you arrive at them through your own direct experience and deep contemplation? Or were they whispered to you, fed to you, from a very young age? They told you this, from your childhood, through stories, through movies, through cultural cliches. They painted the pursuit of wealth as a shallow, corrupting endeavor, and the noble struggle of poverty as a sign of spiritual virtue. They told you that wanting money was a sign of greed, a moral failing, but that working like a slave for someone else's profit was a sign of virtue, of being a hard-working, respectable member of society. They taught you to feel a subtle sense of guilt when you earn, as if profiting from your own talents and efforts is somehow selfish. And they taught you to feel a sense of shame when you ask for what you're worth, as if your needs are an imposition. And that guilt, that deeply programmed sense of unworthiness around wealth, is a prison far stronger than any physical debt. Because a mind that feels guilty for prospering will unconsciously sabotage its own prosperity. A soul that believes it is not spiritual to be wealthy will never allow itself to experience true, holistic abundance. It will remain in a state of self-imposed limitation, forever policing its own desires, a perfect, self-regulating prisoner. Do you finally get it now? Do you see the layers of this illusion? They didn't just build a system that traps you externally through economic means. They also built a language, a system of beliefs that traps you internally. They created a mental cage so that you would never even try to get out from within. You police your own thoughts, you limit your own ambitions, you rationalize your own suffering, all using the very language and logic that the system provided you with. And now, listen to this, because this is a crucial key. The system doesn't protect itself with weapons, with armies, or with walls. It protects itself with ideas. And those ideas, those limiting, disempowering, fear-based ideas, live inside you. They are the invisible guardians of the matrix. They don't need police on every corner if they have citizens who self-censor, who self-regulate, who self-sabotage their own awakening. Do you know why there are so many brilliant, intelligent, capable people trapped in lives they secretly hate? It's not because they lack courage or talent. It's because they still believe, on a deep, subconscious level, that leaving the system is dangerous. They believe that if they break the rules, if they step off the preordained path, everything will fall apart. They fear the chaos, the uncertainty, the judgment of the herd. But what no one ever told them is that the rules were made so you never win. The game was rigged from the start. They were designed to maintain the status quo, to keep the flow of energy moving in one direction, from you to them. And what's more, there are people, a small minority, who don't follow those rules. They operate on a different set of principles, a different understanding of how reality works. And they are the ones who do better. They are the ones who thrive. And there are paths, infinite paths, that exist outside the labyrinth. But these paths are not lit with giant billboards or neon signs. There are no signs at all. There are no guarantees. There is only one decision you need to make, a single, powerful choice that begins the entire process of liberation, to start thinking differently. And this, right here, is where the real revolution begins. It's not with protest signs in the streets. It's not with angry protests against the powers that be. It begins with awareness. It begins the moment you decide that your mind will no longer be a place of manipulation, a fertile ground for the seeds of fear and limitation. It begins when you start to question everything you always took for granted. It begins when you start consciously rewriting your relationship with money, seeing it not as a source of evil or guilt, but as a neutral tool, an amplifier of energy that can be used for creation and liberation. It begins when you redefine your relationship with work, seeking not just a paycheck but a calling, a way to express your unique gifts in service to the world. It begins when you confront and transmute your relationship with fear, seeing it not as a stop sign, but as a compass pointing you in the direction of your growth. Because the system can't control you if you no longer accept its logic. It loses all its power over you the moment you withdraw your belief in its reality. It can't hold you if you stop seeing poverty as a destiny and start seeing it for what it is, a failed experiment, a social program implanted in you to keep you small, because that's all it is, an experiment. A mental program repeated so many times, through so many generations, that you ended up believing it was an immutable law of nature. And now, this leads us to a final, brutal question. A question you must ask yourself with radical honesty. Who would you be if no one had ever told you what you could or couldn't have? Who would you be if you weren't afraid to fail? If you weren't terrified of straying from the path? Of losing the supposed success that has cost you so much of your soul? You probably can't even imagine it clearly right now, and that's okay. Because you have been playing a role for so long, wearing a mask so consistently, that you no longer know who you were before you were handed the script. But that original you, the true, authentic, sovereign self, is still there. It's waiting patiently beneath all the layers of conditioning. It is watching, silent. And it is so tired of pretending. It is fed up with smiling in grey, soulless offices. It is done with filling out forms that reduce your magnificent existence to a series of checkboxes. It is finished with accepting salaries that are a profound insult to its infinite value. That you, the real you, wants out. It wants to scream. It wants to break the cage, even if it hurts, even if it burns, even if the entire world calls you crazy for wanting to be free. And here comes the hardest, most beautiful part of all this. When you finally decide to try and get out, the system will fight back. It will send its heaviest artillery to pull you back in, and that artillery will not be armies or police. It will be your own loved ones. The people who care about you the most, the ones who are still deeply asleep in the matrix, will become its unwitting agents. They will tell you not to be stupid. They will tell you to be grateful for what you have. They will remind you that life is just like this, that work is sacrifice, that stability is everything. They will parrot the programming they received, because your awakening is a threat to their own comfortable slumber. They will say it kindly, they will say it out of love, but they will also say it with a hidden undertone of fear. Because if you free yourself, you prove that freedom is possible. And if freedom is possible, they are left without excuses for their own captivity. And that, for a sleeping soul, hurts more than any loss. So get ready, because leaving the system is not just an economic act, it is a profound emotional and spiritual act. You will lose people. You will break beliefs that have defined you for your entire life. You will be completely and utterly alone at times. But in that sacred solitude, you will also breathe, truly breathe, for the first time, like never before. You will think for yourself, with a clarity and power you never knew you possessed. You will look around you, and for the first time, you will see not just the chains, but also the key that was in your pocket all along. And when that happens, my friend, there is no turning back. Because knowledge can't be unlearned, awareness can't be erased. And when you see the system face to face, without its mask, without its disguise, you'll notice something truly chilling. You'll realize that everything that seemed so solid and stable was completely artificial, that everything that seemed so secure was just a beautiful, tragic illusion. You'll see that even those who seem the most free within the system are often just in a bigger, more luxurious cage. And then, finally, you will choose. Not because someone tells you how, not because you're following a new set of instructions, but because for the first time in your life, you will finally be able to. And that, precisely that, is true wealth. It is the freedom to choose how you live, what you build, who you walk with, and what legacy you leave behind. Because money without freedom is just another form of slavery, and poverty, when it is accepted without a struggle, is simply obedience disguised as humility. So the next time you feel like you can't go on, the next time the weight of this false reality feels too heavy to bear, I want you to remember this. You're not broken, you're waking up. You're not lost, you're coming out of the dream. The system didn't fail you, it was designed to fail you. But you can break it, not with rage, but with clarity. Not with force, but with awareness. Because the only thing this entire system needs to keep existing is for you to stay asleep. And now that you know, will you close your eyes again? Because here is where it gets truly, truly disturbing. When you finally open your eyes, you don't just see the system. You also start seeing, with terrifying clarity, how you yourself sustained it. Yes, you, unintentionally, unknowingly, unquestioningly. Every time you accepted a miserable salary because at least you had a job, you fed the system. Every time you said, money isn't the most important thing, as a justification for not pursuing your true worth, you reinforced its programming. Every time you went into debt to appear as something you weren't, to buy a status symbol that you thought would make you happy, you tightened your own chains. Every time you compared yourself to others, envied their cages, and stayed silent when your soul wanted to scream, you gave it your power. They trained you so well that it wasn't even necessary for someone to watch you. You did it yourself. You became your own jailer. And here comes another uncomfortable truth, one that sits at the very heart of your liberation. This system doesn't care what you think. It doesn't care about your opinions, your hopes, or your dreams. It only cares about what you do, automatically, reflexively. Because what you do reflexively, that's programming. And the most powerful programming that exists isn't poverty, it's normality. They made you see living a life of constant stress as normal. They made you see making ends meet just barely as normal. They made you see hating Mondays and living for Fridays as normal. Sunday night anxiety is normal. Asking permission to get sick is normal. Mortgaging yourself for 30 years for a roof over your head is normal. Aging in a chair in front of a screen that has nothing to do with your dreams is normal. Do you see it now? They didn't just sell you a product. They sold you a lifestyle packaged as security, but it's a security built on one single, terrifying principle: the fear of change. And change, my friend, is the real enemy of the system. Because someone who changes, someone who dares to think differently, can't be predicted. They can't be contained. And now we come to a deeper layer, a topic so fundamental that almost no one wants to touch it: identity. Who are you without everything the system gave you? Who are you without your job title, your salary, your degree, your debts? What's left when you remove all the logos, all the accounts, all the shoulds and supposed tos? If you don't know how to answer that, it's because you were never allowed to. You were never taught to build yourself from the inside out, only to adapt to the outside in. And this will shake you to your core. People who don't know who they are the easiest to control because they need to belong. They need an external framework to give them a sense of self. They need someone to tell them, "You're doing fine, you're doing the right thing, this is what's expected." And that's exactly what the system offers you: a fabricated identity. The identity of the responsible, hard-working, productive, respectable citizen. But don't be mistaken. Being respectable to the system isn't the same as being free. In fact, it's almost the exact opposite, because the more you fit into its mold, the farther you are from your true, authentic self. And that is no coincidence. They want you confused. They want you tired. They want you too busy running on the wheel to think about any of this. Because if one day, even by accident, you stop and calmly observe, you'll notice something brutal. You'll realize that most of your most important life decisions weren't actually made by you. They were made by your parents, your teachers, your environment, your fears, your lacks. Did you really choose what you studied, or was it the sensible option? Did you choose where you live, or was it what you could afford? Did you choose that job, or was it just the only one that showed up? Did you choose to go into debt, or were you just trying to survive? And that's where it hurts. Because it's not that you didn't make decisions, it's that you never had the full map. You only saw the path they showed you. And that path was full of false signs, broken promises, and foreign goals that were never yours to begin with. And that's how you got here. Living a life that doesn't feel like yours, but you don't know how to let go of it either. And here is where many get stuck, in the painful limbo between frustration and fear. They know they don't want to continue like this, but they don't know where to start. And the answer isn't magic, it isn't quick, it isn't comfortable, but it exists. It starts when you accept that you don't need to know everything to take the first step, that you don't need to have the perfect plan to start moving. That one action, even if it's small, is the beginning of all transformation. And above all, that you are not alone. There are thousands, millions of people who are also waking up, who also see the crack in the wall, who also feel that something doesn't fit. And when you connect with that truth, everything changes. Because it's no longer just about you. It's about an entire generation starting to say, no more. No more living to pay bills. No more mortgaging our health for a salary. No more normalizing exhaustion. No more bowing your head. No more accepting poverty as a personal fault. Because it isn't. Poverty in this system is a tool of control. It's the leash that keeps the majority tied, while a minority plays by the rules they wrote for themselves. And no, this is not about hate. It's not about revenge. It's about awareness. It's about understanding how the board works so you can stop playing their game. And here comes another powerful concept, one which almost no one talks about: mental autonomy. Because the real revolution isn't economic, it's psychological. It's when you stop waiting for permission. It's when you decide to learn on your own what they never taught you. It's when you understand that financial education isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. That controlling your time isn't a whim, it's survival. That the income you generate outside the system is your only real guarantee of freedom. And there, right there, another life begins. One that's not written in manuals or shown in movies. One that scares because it has no marked paths, but liberates because it has no walls. One that demands everything from you, but that for the first time gives you something real in return: peace. Not peace as the absence of problems, but peace as the presence of direction. That feeling that even if you don't have everything figured out, at least now you are finally heading in the right direction. Because that direction, that route, that inner compass, finally belongs to you. No one can give it to you. It only appears when you let go of the idea that the system will save you. Because it won't. It never did. It was never designed to. And now that you know, tell me, are you going to keep calling life what you were taught to accept? Or are you going to start building something that, even if it hurts at first, is truly and authentically yours? The door is there. It is open. Not everyone sees it. Many who do see it don't dare to cross it. You decide. You decide. But if you've come this far, if you're still listening to these words, it's because something inside you already decided long before you consciously did. Something woke up. Something got tired of the silence. Something inside you started to whisper, enough. And that, my friend, has no turning back. Because once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. You start noticing the strings, the puppets, the whole theater. The boss's fake smile, the hypocritical pat on the back, the endless meetings that serve no purpose, the salary that barely covers the chronic tiredness, the false promises, the someday that never comes. You see it all, and it hurts, but it also frees you, because now you know there is something beyond. You can no longer keep pretending that everything is fine. You can no longer live a routine that only leads you to the grave faster. The autopilot is off, and the control is now in your hands. But before you close this video, I want you to look around. Look at your desk, your house, your phone, and then look inside. Ask yourself, quietly, without filters, without lies, am I living my life, or am I living a cheap copy of what others decided for me? If you don't like the answer, then this moment is your breaking point. Here, now, as you watch this screen, you can decide to keep justifying the unjustifiable, or you can start moving. One step, one idea, one new belief, one conscious action. Because real change doesn't start with big speeches or miracles. It starts with tiny, private, almost invisible, but constant decisions. And those decisions, accumulated over time, change destinies. Not everyone's, yours. And yes, of course, it's scary. The fear of making mistakes, the fear of losing what little you have, the fear of not knowing what to do next. But I'll tell you something brutal. Fear is not a sign you're on the wrong path. Fear is the evidence that you are leaving the old behind. If you don't feel fear, you are probably still asleep. So embrace it. Walk with it. Use fear as a compass. Because when the system shakes, it's because you are moving. And that, my friend, that is the beginning of something unstoppable. Now, listen to this with your heart wide open. You're not broken. You're reprogramming. You're not failing. You're being reborn. You're not lost. You're leaving a path that was never yours. And that, even if it hurts, is beautiful. Because every time you dare to leave a mental cage, you inspire another to do the same. And that's how the real revolution begins. Not with violence, but with awareness. One, then another, then thousands. An invisible wave that doesn't shout, but overwhelms. A change that doesn't ask for permission, because it no longer needs it. And if this video has resonated with you, if it has touched something inside you that you didn't even know was there, then don't keep it just for yourself. Share this seed. Let it fall into another mind. Let it multiply. Let it disturb. Let it awaken. And subscribe. Not out of obligation, but because here, every word you hear will be a tool to open more cracks in that false reality that was imposed on you. And if you want to go one step further, leave this phrase in the comments. I already saw the wall. No need to explain anything else. Whoever reads it will understand. And if they don't, they're not ready yet. Now then, this is not a goodbye. It's a reboot, a crack in the matrix, a breach in the code. The beginning of a new narrative, written by you, with your ink, with your rules, with your mistakes, and with your freedom. And remember, while most keep playing a game of chess with pieces they didn't choose, you can throw the board away, redefine the game, change the pieces, or better yet, invent a game where there are no kings or pawns, only creators. See you soon, or not. Maybe now you'll be too busy starting to write your own story. and then you won't need anyone else to tell it to you. Alright, that's the end of today's story. Now, let's take a look at the thoughts and reflections of a friend of mine after watching my video. I don't even know where to begin. To say I watched a video feels like a gross understatement, a trivialization of what actually occurred. It feels more accurate to say I experienced a transmission, a frequency that bypassed my cynical mind and spoke directly to a part of my soul I had long thought dormant, perhaps even non-existent. I clicked on it, expecting another fleeting distraction in an endless sea of digital noise, but what I received was a profound and unsettling silence that shattered the very foundation of my perceived reality. The voice, the words, the images, they weren't just content, they were a mirror, reflecting back at me the vague, formless anxieties and the quiet desperation that have been the wallpaper of my life for as long as I can remember. It was as if someone had reached into the deepest, most hidden corners of my subconscious, pulled out the tangled threads of my own unasked questions, and woven them into a narrative that was both terrifying and exquisitely validating. The feeling of being wrong that the video spoke of, that wasn't a metaphor for me. It was the name for the low-grade fever of the spirit I've been running my entire adult life, a persistent sense of dissonance I could never articulate, but could never escape. To hear it described with such clarity was like being seen for the first time, not for the person I pretend to be, but for the captive soul I truly was. The metaphor of the prison, the labyrinth without walls, resonated with a force that left me breathless. It gave shape and form to the invisible forces that have guided my choices. The school system, which the video so brilliantly identified as the initial programming ground, was suddenly cast in a new, sinister light. I remembered the boredom, the stifling of creativity, the endless focus on memorization and obedience. I was rewarded not for my curiosity, but for my compliance. I was taught to color within the lines, both literally and metaphorically, and any deviation was met with subtle correction or outright disapproval. It was a gentle, almost loving, process of domesticating a wild spirit, preparing it for a lifetime in a cage it would be taught to build for itself. And then the job, the career, the supposed pinnacle of adult achievement. The video's words echoed in my mind, the job you didn't choose. And the truth of that statement hit me like a physical blow. Did I choose this? Or did I simply follow the path of least resistance, the one that was presented to me as safe, stable, and responsible? I have traded the vibrant, unpredictable hours of my one life for the sterile, predictable confines of an office, for tasks that rarely ignite my passion but reliably pay the bills that keep the whole charade going. The video called it a more comfortable cell, and I felt the cold, hard truth of that in my bones. The stability I craved, the security I was told to prioritize above all else, was nothing more than the predictable routine of a well-kept prisoner. And the debt, my God, the debt. The video didn't just talk about it as a financial burden, it exposed it as a masterfully designed tool of control, a spiritual anchor that ensures you can never fly too high or stray too far. The student loans that promised a brighter future, but delivered a decade of servitude. The mortgage that felt like planting roots but was, in reality, a 30-year sentence tethering me to a system I was beginning to despise. The credit cards, those shiny symbols of freedom that are, in fact, the most insidious shackles of all, encouraging a lifestyle of consumption that only serves to deepen the void it promises to fill. I saw it all with a sickening clarity how every major life decision I had made, every milestone I had celebrated, was a step deeper into the labyrinth. The system, as the video explained, doesn't need to use force when it can use fear so effectively. The fear of being without, the fear of falling behind, the fear of what others might think. This fear is the invisible electric fence that keeps the herd in line. And the most heartbreaking part, the part that brought tears to my eyes, was the realization of how I had been an active participant in my own incarceration. I had celebrated the promotions, shown off the new car, felt a sense of pride in the very things that kept me trapped. I called it freedom, just as the video said I would. The moment the narrator said, "Once you wake up, there is no turning back," I felt a shift inside me. It was a point of no return. The comfortable numbness I had mistaken for peace was gone, replaced by a raw, vibrant, and slightly terrifying awareness. I started seeing the pattern everywhere, just as promised. The nightly news became not a source of information, but a carefully curated stream of fear-based programming designed to keep me feeling powerless and divided. The advertisements on my social media feed were no longer just ads. They were targeted psychological operations designed to prey on my deepest insecurities. Even casual conversations with friends and family took on a new dimension. I could hear the script, the deeply ingrained programming in their words as they talked about their jobs, their mortgages, their anxieties about the future. They were speaking the language of the labyrinth, reinforcing its walls for each other, all while believing they were just having a normal conversation. It was isolating, profoundly so. To wake up in a world of sleeping people is to experience a loneliness that is sharp and acute. But the video offered an antidote to that loneliness. It wasn't a promise of an easy path, but the quiet assurance that I was not alone in this awakening. The suggestion to comment, to connect, to share this seed of awareness was a powerful call to find the others. It was a reminder that this revolution is not a solitary one. It's a collective shift in consciousness, happening one soul at a time, creating a network of light in the darkness of the old paradigm. The video's exploration of language was perhaps the most profound revelation for me. The idea that the very words we use are part of the cage money is the root of all evil. You have to work hard to get by. Be realistic. I saw how these phrases, which I had always accepted as simple truths, were actually limiting beliefs, energetic firewalls designed to keep me from accessing my true creative power and potential for abundance. They create a subconscious resistance to wealth and freedom, turning us into our own harshest critics and most effective jailers. The concept of mental autonomy struck me as the ultimate key. The real battle is not against a shadowy cabal or an external system. It's against the programming within my own mind. The real work is to decondition myself, to unlearn a lifetime of lies, and to consciously choose a new set of beliefs, a new internal language that aligns with the sovereign, abundant, and free being I now remember I am. This process is not without its pain. As the video warned, the system fights back through those closest to you. I've already experienced it. The concerned looks, the well-meaning advice to be careful, the subtle attempts to pull me back into the familiar comfort of the collective dream. It hurts to feel misunderstood by the people you love, but the video gave me a new perspective on this as well. Their fear is not a judgment of me, it's a reflection of their own. My freedom is a mirror that shows them their own bars, and that is a difficult thing for anyone to face. But I am learning to hold this space with compassion, both for them and for myself. I am learning to walk with the fear, as the video suggested, to use it as a compass. The moments I feel the most fear are the moments I know I am moving in the right direction, stepping further out of the old world and into the new one I am creating for myself. The fear is the feeling of old structures dissolving, of my own limitations breaking apart. And on the other side of that fear is a feeling I can only describe as true life, a vibrant, authentic, and deeply peaceful existence that is not dependent on external validation or material accumulation. The final question the video posed, who would you be without the system, is the question I am now living. I don't have the answer yet, and for the first time in my life, that's exciting. It's a blank page, an unwritten story. I am no longer a character reciting lines. I am the author, holding the pen. And I know that the story I write will not be a perfect one. It will be filled with mistakes, with detours, with moments of doubt. But they will be my mistakes, my detours, my doubts, and that makes all the difference. This video was not just a message, it was an activation. It was a key, a map, and a permission slip all in one. It gave me the permission I didn't know I was waiting for the permission to wake up. It showed me the map of the prison so that I could finally see the way out. And it handed me the key, which was the simple, devastating, and liberating truth that the door was never locked. I am eternally grateful to my friend for sharing this, and to the creator for having the courage to speak these truths. This is more than just a video. It is a lifeline. It is the beginning. And for anyone else who feels this resonance, who feels this stirring in their soul, know this: you are not crazy, you are not broken, and you are not ever, alone. We are waking up together. All right, see you next time, my friend. If you liked my video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for your support.